Hey guys, still in my kitchen. You know, actually I'm chained here, I can't leave. Okay, just got back from Costco, just bagging up some chicken. And actually I had an interesting conversation when I finished up at the gym today. Talking to a few gentlemen and actually the conversation came up around, we were talking about protein and foods and the whole idea of being able to get nutrition out of the foods that we eat. Hey Paula. And you know, it's so fascinating. It's just, you know, I've been bodybuilding, weight training since I was 13 off and on. And a big part of the propaganda, and I'll call it that, I'll call it propaganda, the big part of the propaganda around protein is that if we take in more protein, we'll end up having, you know, proteins necessary for developing muscle, proteins necessary, you know, for all tissue structure in the body. But it's, I mean, it's such a linear conversation because it's the same, it'd be the same thing saying, if I want a beautiful home, all I need is wood, right? A bunch of 2x4s. So you get a truck to unload a bunch of 2x4s in an empty lot. Is that going to build a house? Well, no. It's wood is a part of the home, but it's not the whole home, right? There's a whole bunch of other things that go together to make a beautiful home. And it's the same thing when it comes to our diet, a whole host of beautiful things that come together to make the human body. And we get caught up on this singular concept of, I need more protein, I'm thinking about carbs, and people were so worried and so linear focused in this whole conversation around diet. But with protein, it's fascinating. You look at, so, you know, you go to Costco and you buy those big protein tubs, you know, they're big enough so that when you're finished with it, you can actually use it as a hot tub. So the challenge, first of all, the challenge with that type of protein is that it degrades or it oxidizes over time. So you get a large can of protein, and half the protein, half the volume of the container is air. So air fills up a lot of the space inside the can because it's not empty, right? It's full of air as well as the protein. But if you cut an apple in half, leave it on the counter for a little while, what happens? Well, the apple oxidizes, right? It's being affected and acted upon by oxygen. So the same thing that goes through protein. So the protein degrades. So the likelihood is that the protein you're consuming probably was because generally most commercial quality proteins aren't very good to start with. So by the time you actually even get halfway down that canister of protein, the likelihood is that it's probably, you know, 60-70% degraded. So the quality of the protein that you're taking in is fairly limited. But that's only a small part of the problem. The other part of the problem is protein doesn't do anything by itself. Protein is like, again, as I said before, putting wood on the ground saying, build me a freaking house. Wood does not make a house. Protein does not make the body. Protein it's a necessary macro element of the body. Of course, we need a fair amount of it to build this and sustain the structure. But how does protein get converted into muscle tissue, into cells? How does that happen? And well, it happens through the process of enzymes. Well, enzymes aren't found in limited supply. The body has to make enzymes inside the body. So what are enzymes designed from? Well, enzymes are designed generally from amino acids, right? The degradation of protein into amino acids. So amino acids and minerals for the most part, right? It's a little more complicated than that, but just in general conversation, minerals and protein make up enzymes. So let me ask you this: if you are mineral deficient, if your diet was poor going into your training, right? If your diet was less than adequate going into your training, right? And for most people, when they begin an exercise program, they've been malnourished for years, right? For decades. So you go in minerally deficient. We know, and the conversation is, you know, it's uncontested now. We know that soil is minerally devoid. We can see it, right? The evidence is people are sicker and sicker every year. With more advances in the health sciences and fitness technologies, people are still getting sick because the micronutrient value of food is so poor that exercise just actually becomes a form of stress that people can't recover from properly. So if we ingest protein and we're signaling the body that we want this protein to be converted to muscle tissue. So I train hard, like a lot of people out there do. So the training stressor actually is telling the body that I want to take that muscle fiber and increase its physical structure, increase its physical size, or I want to build more muscle tissue. So how do we do that? Well, we take existing protein stores from an amino acid pool that the body has, and then we use enzymes, which are made from minerals and protein, to actually to take and facilitate the conversion of amino acids into protein peptides, right? The protein structures. But again, the challenge is we need the minerals. So if I was mineral deficient going into my exercise program, and I'm shoving all this protein down my neck, and think about, again, exercise is using up what? Enzymes, right? Enzymes, we're stimulating the metabolism, which is controlled by enzymatic behavior. No enzymes, no metabolism, we have death. So we're shoving more and more protein down our neck. We're not giving it any mineral component. In fact, we're actually creating this massive imbalance of this nutrient play inside the body. So the body has to take the protein because, well, we forced it through exercise. So the body has to actually take the protein and go steal some minerals, some trace minerals from the body, wherever it can find them, because they're not showing up in our diet for the average person. It's got to steal minerals from the body and actually to assist in the development of enzymes to actually assist in the restructuring of the human tissue. Does that make sense? So if minerals and the trace minerals and these other cofactors are not there with protein at the same time to assist in the development of muscle tissue and supporting of all the turnover of tissue inside the body, what the hell is the point of eating protein? And what is even the point of exercising if you're not willing to take that extra step to ensure that all the micronutrients and the macronutrients are there in enough quantity to support the development of the human body? It's the logic is crazy, but what has happened, and I know I was a part of this unconscious behavior for many years, because the way it's sold out there, everything's sold as the highlight, the spotlight's on protein, right? The spotlight's on or 3 amino acids that we use for recovery. Well, that's fine, but it's just, but there's more things going on, right? And because we don't look at it in a holistic point of view, and we're very linear in how we look at things, because the information is given to us and how in a very linear format, right? Here's vitamin C, right? Dr. Paul Leining, the Nobel Prize winner for his research on vitamin C. So shoving a bunch of vitamin C down your neck, well, yeah, that kind of it works, but that's not the problem. Right? How about B vitamins? Well, we need B vitamins to assist in the to assist in the releasing of carbohydrate energy in the body, right? So, but just taking B vitamins is not the issue, right? Everything is a cofactor. Everything is in synergy, and so really what we're looking for, and what I've really come to discover over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, and really been looking at within my own health and my own fitness, is that if I don't find the synergy, there's no point. Right? If I don't find the synergistic way, I'm not able to look in a more of a lateral view on how I look at my health and nutrition, then there's no point going forward in a linear format, because it simply doesn't work. And if I go in one direction, I'm going to do that to the exclusion of something else that's vitally important. And so it was a fascinating conversation, but I think that's the problem when, I was in Costco today and these massive tubs of protein. Man, it just doesn't work. The best it's going to do is turn you into a methane-producing machine, right? Commercial grade protein generally is very poor quality. And of course, and just another little sidebar conversation we had towards the end of it, we're also talking about legumes, right? And we talked about, of course, enzymes, and the enzyme conversation around protein led to legumes, nuts, and seeds. And I said, well, it's fascinating. I read a book years ago from... oh God, I can't remember his name now. Anyhow, the book was called Enzyme Nutrition, and it was probably 15 years ago I read the book. And one of the fascinating things, he said that a lot of animals actually don't have digestive enzymes. They actually don't have the digestive enzymes that a human would have, which I found quite fascinating. Like killer whales, for example, don't actually really digest their food. What they do is actually they consume a seal, right? They don't chew it up and masticate the seal into little bits and pieces. The seal actually gets stored in a part of the stomach, and there's an enzyme called caspin that's released that actually degrades the tissue into liquid. And then the killer whale gets his liquid nutrition. All the proteins and amino acids and the fats and the minerals get liquefied and get dumped into the killer whale's body, and he gets to enjoy it. Squirrels will take nuts and seeds. You see them shoving these things in their mouth. What they end up doing, though, is that what they found is that squirrels actually plant a lot of these seeds, and they sprout them. Smart little squirrel. Why do they sprout them? Because there's something called an enzyme inhibitor that's found in most nuts and seeds, right? Because remember, nuts and seeds and legumes, they're embryos, right? They're a plant embryo. and they have tremendous amount of value and energy, but only if an enzyme inhibitor is actually shut off and allowing the seed to grow. So why do we? So the consciousness around that was we started soaking our beans and nuts and seeds, what have you, and we soaked them until they just sprouted, and that sprouting process actually shut off the enzyme inhibitor and released all that amazing energy and nutrition from the nut or seed legume, so that we could actually consume it. Why do you think people get gassed up when they consume a lot of legumes? Because the enzyme inhibitor is still active, and it's not going to give anything up, so we can't break it down. So we sprout it first, and then we consume it. Now we actually have access to all that raw nutrition, and it becomes an extraordinary food. On the other way, especially like with so much soy protein out there, soy protein unfortunately is such a convoluted food that we can't even trust it anymore. But one of the challenges with it is that, let's say an organic soybean, if you can find one that hasn't been affected by the whole GMO restructuring, would still have to be sprouted first to actually get the quality nutrition. The enzyme has to be shut off. Yeah, so it's fascinating stuff. But anyhow, that was the last 15-minute conversation we had leaving the gym today, and I just think it's fascinating. I know from Eastern philosophy when I was first working in natural health care, one of the conversations that was had is that, you know, humans are born with a finite amount of energy. We're born with a vital force. Now, it's up to us to really enhance that vital force by consuming foods that are not dead, by consuming foods that don't rob us of our energy. So if I only have a certain amount of energy, I was born with a certain battery life for life, I decide how fast I want to use that up. And when I'm consuming foods that are dead, I'm robbing from my vital source to process this food stuff, and the food is supposed to be giving me something rather than taking away. It's supposed to be a source of nourishment, not a source of almost a source of illness, because food should come in with a complete package. Food should have its own enzymes, ideally. Right? Nuts and seeds have their own enzymes if you sprout them. Fruit and vegetables have what? Well, they're a complete package, at least they should be, or they were historically. Right? And even cured meats. Why do they cure them? Well, curing actually is a whole process of releasing the enzyme caspin, so it breaks the structure down, much easier to digest. Right? So we have a lot of ancient wisdom that really hasn't found its way into popular conversation. And again, this whole linear mindset, we cannot think in a very singular thought process when it comes to anything in life, because that's simply not how it works. The human ecosystem, the universal ecosystem does not work that way. And the more that we oppose it, the more singular we become in thought process, the more damage we end up creating. Anyhow, I got some chicken to put away. I got dishes to wash. I hope you guys have an incredible weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I hope this little blurb was slightly helpful. At least it provokes thought. And it's not, it's not the truth. It's just my truth. And it's just, it's always food for conversation and food for thought. So speaking of food, I got to have a shake. All right. Bye, guys.